Relationships and other people are one of the best resources we have available to us for health, right? But they're hard. Building relationships, especially healthy ones, require work and require many points of connection over time and space. And so I just wanted to mention connection as a resource, connection itself, each one of those interfaces with other people is a resource in and of itself. And connection is something that can be done all the time, even with strangers. Now, of course, we want to build those deep and healthy relationships, but sometimes those take time. And especially if we don't have many of those types of relationships around us now, what can we do to help us to connect more, to form those relationships, to have more of those connections? And so I want to talk about connections specifically. Like if you have an object, it's made up of all kinds of tiny atoms, tiny molecules. And each one of those molecules and atoms is important to the whole piece, the whole item. When we're talking about connection, this is positive interactions with other people. It does not connect you to have negative interactions with other people. As a matter of fact, that disconnects you from people. So when we talk about connection, we are talking about positive interactions, interactions that leave us feeling better about ourselves, better about our lives. These connections, each one of them can have very positive benefits. And one of those is happiness, just in general. People that connect positively with other people on a regular basis are more happy. They have more joy in their lives, reducing anxiety and depression in them. Many of these resources that we've mentioned in this course reduce anxiety and depression. And many of the reasons why we are seeing such an increase in anxiety and depression in our society is because we're neglecting many of these just basic resources. Connections increase our empathy, our compassion, and our resilience. They can also strengthen our immune system, so they can have physical impact. And this is 50% increased chances of living longer. And so I don't know how that was studied or how that specific percentage was come up with, but even if you can just live a little bit longer, have a better chance of living longer, that is always a great thing, right? We want to talk about taking every opportunity that we have to connect with another person and making that a positive interaction as best we can, as much as we have control over that. So we want to take each opportunity. That means when we go out to do our errands during the day, we want to look at that as a potential opportunity to resource our health by connecting with others. We also want to make sure that we are limiting judgment of people, because judgment automatically disconnects in many cases, especially if you are not close to the person or you're not approaching a judgment you've made about them in a loving way. It's going to disconnect that relationship or that potential relationship. So we want to limit how much we're judging people, especially by outside appearances, especially by, we talk about how humans naturally have first impressions, but many times that can be very deceiving. First impressions can be very deceiving based on the day, based on the circumstances, based on the mood that both people are in, right? So we want to make sure that we're setting aside judgment, setting aside assumptions, and instead getting curious about them. Questions help us connect. We want to choose kindness. So this is super important. You've probably seen the memes going around that say, be kind. You don't know what's going on with someone else's life behind the scenes. And that's so true in so many cases. We have no idea what's going on with that person internally, what is going on in their lives, what situation that they're facing. And so we always want to start by being kind. And if we're going to have positive interactions with people, kindness is the way to enter into those. That will always give you an in for that connection. We want to connect even with strangers. It is possible to connect. You go to the grocery store, you say hello to somebody, you say, how are you? You say, excuse me, or, can I help you reach that? Or, there's just plenty of opportunity throughout our days to connect with strangers. And yes, even these small connections that we just consider polite, that we just consider good society, these are actually good for our health. They actually make us feel better. They lift our spirits. If you've ever been somewhere where somebody just took a moment to be kind to you, to say something kind to you, to do something kind for you, and you just kind of felt those tears welling up in your eyes, you just feel that emotion well up in you, because kindness can connect us. With friends, making coffee dates with them, going out and talking face to face, connecting, on social media. I have a lot of acquaintances and even friendships that I've developed via social media. I have a couple people that I interact with on a regular basis that I've never met. But we've walked each other through different times in our lives just from connecting on social media. So that can be a positive interface if we use it in a positive way. There are ways to filter social media. There are ways to filter what you see on social media. And so when you learn about those ways and you just filter out all the negative, the drama, I want to say most of it, because even our most positive friends can have an off day and kind of move over to that negative space. But and we don't necessarily want to just know positive. Like, we do have to face the reality sometimes of life and be with people, be with our friends through that negative. We don't just want to filter out their negative and only be a part of their positive. We want to be there for people no matter what. But there are ways to filter on social media so that your experience when you're on there is a positive for your health and not degrading to your health. And so we need to be able to do that. Connecting with our family, spending time doing things together, or even just in conversation, making room for that conversation, finding out something new about them that you've never known before. I do this even with my husband. Sometimes things come up where I'm just like, I didn't know that. Like, what? That is totally new to me. So there are plenty of people around us, even if we do not have, if you've tried to make a list of your relationships and you're coming up short, you're feeling like there's not very many people in your life that you have intimacy with. We need to start out with connection. So connection is where it starts. And so you can connect with the people around you in different ways and start to develop that intimacy in a healthy way. Like we talked about in the boundaries lesson, we want to make sure that our relationships that we're building and the intimacy we are building is healthy, and that it's not just one-sided, and it's not people using each other for their own purposes. We want to prepare ahead of time. And what I mean by that is every one of these resources, if we're going to use them as a resource, is intentional. It's not just something that happens, or it may be something that happens accidentally throughout your day. You may accidentally connect with people, but that's not going to benefit you as much as if you're intentionally, purposefully doing it. Because when you intentionally and purposefully do something, your mind is absorbing it. Your mind is cognizant of it and aware of it. When we are paying attention to it, it's going to change the pathways in our brain when we see and recognize that we just had a moment of connection with someone. And we're going to be able to utilize that even more in our life because we're paying attention to it. So when you get up in the morning, it's a good thing if you're focusing on connection and trying to build that into your life, trying to build relationships into your life, trying to be more intentional in your relationships, to get up first thing in the morning and think about all the ways that you have the potential of connecting that day. And if you feel like you don't have opportunities or you don't have enough opportunities, it might be time to create some of those opportunities. I know if you're anything like me, I tend to have some social anxiety going on. And when I'm in front of people, I get very awkward very quickly. I am a deep thinker, And I always want to go deep with people before we've done the work on top. The shallow, the chit chat, all of that is very awkward for me, how to get to that deep. And so, but skipping it all together isn't fair either, right? Because you haven't invested, you don't have that trust capital with that person yet. And so learning how to do that surface level chit chat, I've had to do things like make lists. And so making lists of conversation starters and even practicing them is a good thing to do. I try to go for the compliments, and I want my compliments to be sincere. I'm a very authentic person too, and sincere, and I don't ever want to do something that's just wooden or just for the purpose of trying to make an interaction more comfortable. So if I'm going to compliment somebody, I really want to find something that to compliment that I really think is cool. And so that takes, paying attention. That takes focusing on that person. Going back to being mindful about the conversation. And one of those things that I will do to connect with someone in many circumstances is find a compliment, find a way to encourage them, because that makes me happy too when I can encourage someone. So that's always a good way of connecting with others. You can do that even with a stranger. I know I've been behind strangers in line before, and I have this weird kind of social anxiety where I've learned to extrovert. Much of that has come from growing up in the church and under a theology of extroversion, like Christians have to be extroverts. If you're not, you have to get to be one because you have to go tell the world about Jesus, that kind of thing. And we'll talk about more of that in the Jesus following resources. But I can be in a situation where I'm tending to be anxious and a little bit insecure, and I can just talk. Like I just end up talking, which can become very awkward. But I've been behind people in line before and just, said something like, ooh, I use that same brand of, whatever it is. And just say something like that. And suddenly we're like connecting. We're in a conversation and they're smiling and I'm smiling. So, if you need to, make a list of conversation starters, things you can compliment, that kind of thing. Smile. Smiling changes everything. I've noticed this lately so much, even going through drive-thrus when I drive up to the window and I'm just smiling and I'm just like, thank you so much, and I just try to keep a smile on my face because 9 times out of 10, that connects you to the person, and that person will either smile back or they might say something to you. They might make a joke. There's all kinds of things that it just kind of breaks that ice between people. Smiling is definitely an icebreaker, and it's something that we all can do. We all can connect by smiling, and I think we need to smile more, even because smiling in itself lifts our mood. So it tells our nervous system, smiling, the act of smiling tells your brain, oh, things must be all right because we have a smile on our face. So that in itself can help us. And when we do it towards someone else, that can help them as well. So I just want to encourage you to connect with people, even if it's going to be someone that you're never going to see again in your whole entire life. Remember, each person has value. Each person is created in God's image, and each person is unique and different in their own way. We learn so much and we gain so much perspective by interacting and connecting with other people of all, walks of life, of every variety. It increases our knowledge, and it increases our, like it was talking about, our empathy and our weight and our, decreases our judgment of others. The more world that we connect with. So just encouraging you with that, and hopefully those connections will lead to relationships in the end. The more connections we have with a particular person, that builds a relationship. Those are the building blocks for the relationship.